Of course, as indicated by Andy, I think it's easy for you to, if you read a lot of abstracts, and after a while, you should be able to learn how to write a good abstract. As a reviewer, I still do a lot of review because I cannot refuse them. They're asked by my friends. So social networking in the area of science is also very important. So when my friend asks me to review an article, I have no choice but to say yes. Otherwise, if that person I don't know, then a lot of time I will say no to that person. And as a reviewing editor, as opposed to what you do, you go directly to the introduction. In the science area, I go directly to the data. Because after I look at the data, immediately I have some idea of whether this paper is acceptable or not. So it's kind of different, I guess, in the social science. I think in the social science, how you write a paper is very important. But to us, it's the data. It's if the data is novel, if it actually tells us something new. And I think that's what most science students in the medical science area should be looking at, is the novelty of the data. Anyway, this is how much I would like to share. We have questions from the audience, yes.
Thank you, Professor Gao.
Thank you, Professor Gao. And I think in lots of situations, the review process really takes ages. So, do you think what we can do to shorten the review process, or can we do something? Because thank you, because I know you are an expert of publication.
Well, in some journals they recommend reviewers, right? Then you have to do very carefully. As I said, reviewer from the same institution or same context will be ruled out by editor because they don't want anything like called conflict of interest. And you don't really name these big names because often they are very busy. Then whenever you name names, such a better to cite the reviewers you want to have. Actually, you can actually build a reference list carefully enough so you can have those names that you want as reviewers. And especially when you write abstract, because when you send a review request, usually send a review request, well, for potential reviewers in abstract. I've seen that if you have these names in abstract, and that reviewer, I see their names in abstract, and he or she is more likely to accept the invitation. You cannot predict outcome, but you can do these sort of things to give more incentive for these reviewers, potential reviewers, to accept the invitation. Yeah.
Let's say if the author is still recommend any reviewer, will you as an editor find the strict ones for them or the easy ones for them?
We don't know because you can never tell. And you usually as an editor, I'm not sure whether that's the same as Professor Chow. I will go through the reference list, look for people, especially the person that you have sort of cited as crucial references.
In science, actually, in medicine science, we have a database. So every journal has a database of who is an expert in a certain area. So as the editor, associate editor or editor, then what I need to do is to type the keyword. And then the database will come up with names. And then I will take a look at whether these reviewers, if they are actually experts in the area, and then I will send invitation to them. But usually, I would send, for example, if I need 3 reviewers, I will send 6 at least. And because the more famous and busy they are, then the more likely that they will not review your article. But if it is a very good journal, like if the journal in the area, in the field is important, then it's more likely that this reviewer will say yes to you because they see themselves as part of the family. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also depending on the journal.
Open access journal is still very big feedback. So what do you think about open access journals?
It depends on the field, really. I mean, in medical science, probably open access journal is more acceptable now.
Some of them are having very high impact on it.
Yeah. Because now very few journals in my field, it fits. I think what the journals have impact factor are open access journal. In fact, I remember if you want to make your article open access, you have to pay like $5,000 to the publisher and say, ah. So in my field, I still think the traditional print journal with online access is for highly index, in particular like social science citation index or arts and humanities index, would be better than open access journal.
Any more questions from the audience? I'm quite sure Andy will entertain some more questions.
I've heard a lot of stories about review processes being quite different between UK journals and US journals. And with US journals, some of the disappointed authors have said that the editors tend to be students, PhD students or research students, and they do not have time, just like their professors or their supervisors. So the first thing they do is to look at the CV of the person who's to send the article, and based on that CV decide whether they would even want to read it. Is that true?
It's certainly true. A lot of journals in the United States, say like law, education, they are run by graduate students. But I think they also, all the manuscripts, if they go through a peer review process, because we don't have a expert review, we have peer review basically. That's the difference between maybe with medical science and social sciences. We have peer review, and then the process will be rigorous. I doubt very much that they would look at a CV, because I don't think we submit a manuscript with CV. And usually, the editor may know your identity, but I don't think they would look at your identity as to judge the quality of your manuscripts. But they do, as I said, look for whether you are likely to, your study is likely to be sort of a novel, fresh, meaningful contribution to the field. Novel data, I don't know, because we really care what kind of contribution a study can make to the field, rather the data was novel or not.
Just one question. How is the role divided between the editor and the reviewers? If reviewers are spending most of the time actually looking through and deciding whether it's publishable or not, what is the editor doing?
Oh, there's a few scenarios. I had several scenarios. We had both reviewers say yes to the manuscript, but I as editor has serious doubts about the manuscript, and I will look for another review. So for the third review.
So the reputation is really with the editor or the journal. So they have the ultimate responsibility.
If you have say mixed review, one rejection, or no, not major revision, one minor revision, you probably still have to look for third review for it's a balance. But in most journals, if you have one rejection, and that's usually the end of the story, because I have a manuscript, I've sent out invitations to 10 people, and all of them turned down, and then in the end, one accepted, and that one recommends rejection. Now I don't have to worry about second review, because that's the end of the manuscript.
Thank you.
I guess the editor actually make decisions
Yeah.
on whether they accept the paper to be published in the journal, while the reviewer takes on a reviewing the article to make recommendations, but the editor makes decisions. Any more questions? Yes, there's one in the back here.
We'd like to ask a question to both professors in terms of time management, which that is a very essential skill of being a PhD student or professor. So, how would two of you share some key points of? I mean, time management is very important, but how to do it? I mean, we are always running out of time, or some will be being professionals, or some will kind of be multitasking. And how could you, under this kind of a timeline of like 4 years, and actually Dr. Gao, I saw that even during your PhD studies, you already published a lot. So how do you manage your time and kind of keep a kind of regular kind of a pattern of work that makes you succeed? Thank you.
Well, I would say that don't take your doctoral study as kind of a holiday time. Some think, well, because you have total free control. Many of us will have total free control of your time. If you don't work in the lab, and in the lab is a different story. It's really like academic life. You have multitask. So consider plan academic publication as part of your routine. Then you're doing multiple tasks at the same time. It's like your later academic life. You have to deal with teaching, research, service, and a lot of administrative duties at the same time. So I usually budget time into my day when I was a student. So I probably would say, well, first half of the day I would be doing mainly about my own doctoral study. And the second half of the day I would probably doing some sort of writing for research or extensive reading. I remember I like to stay in the library, just go through different kind of journals in my field, not necessarily relevant to my research topic. I just want to have some idea what has been published in these journals as library receives new issues. And I don't do much, so I generally write a few hundred words a day. Because I was told once you become a full-time faculty, the time you will spend on writing is, I don't know, minimal or something. You've got better experience. So you usually can manage write a few hundred words for, say, 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So you have to get used to this kind of writing. That finish a bit writing in 30 or 45 minutes, and then you come back later in the day or the second day to continue that bit. And so most of my manuscripts have been completed in this way. So one day I write 500 words, and the next day I may write 250 words, and the third day I might write 750 words, and then over a week or two, and I have this 6,000 or 7,000 word manuscript, and then I go back to refine it under some time. But I know some of you like to write a perfect introduction, and that actually takes about at least 4 months. I've seen people just writing introduction for 3 months and 4 months without stop.
I guess to me, the most important thing is passion.
Yeah.
So if you do have passion in the work that you're doing, then you would like to get it done as soon, as quickly as possible. Right? So that answer, whether like for time management, if you have passion in what you're doing, then you would spend more time in it. Regarding the second point, I think it's like drinking wine. If you buy a bottle of wine, oftentimes $200 you get a bottle of wine, 90 points. And then $2,000, you get a bottle of wine, 95 points. $20,000, you get a bottle of wine, 98 points. Okay, so that's an analogy on how I use my time. Okay, so majority of the thing, I will just very quickly finish what I'm doing, and I don't go to perfection. 90% is sufficient in majority of the tasks that I'm doing. But for the things that I really am interested, I will go an extra distance and spend that extra effort in getting my work to 95%. And for the thing that I really, really would like to spend my whole life in, like in my research, then I will go that extra distance to 98%, 99%. And by doing that, you can therefore distribute your time according to this kind of scale. Because majority of the time, when you work on something, 10 minutes, you can get 90%, 2 hours, 95%, 200 hours, 98%. And for research, oftentimes, you do have to work until it's 98%. But for a lot of things, that 10 minutes of work is sufficient as a task to finish. And that's how I distribute my time.
There's a positive correlation between the time you spend on research and research output.
Anyway, I think it's getting late. Everyone is hungry. And if you would like to ask one more question, then please. Otherwise, let's thank Andy for an excellent time and sharing his view on how to publish papers, how to connect academics to us. Thank you.